I didn't feel joyful. I was scared. I was afraid. And it wasn't anxiety. They were like panic attacks,
Yeah.
which are different.
Pause on that for a moment. Not a headline. Not a rumor. Those are Goldie Hawn's own words. The woman whose laughter became a kind of cultural religion, whose smile was shorthand for joy itself. America didn't just love Goldie Hawn. America needed her, and for 50 years she gave the world everything it asked for. Every shimmer, every giggle, every golden frame of light. So why, behind all of that, were there panic attacks? Why does she describe her own career with the language of fear? And who, exactly, was she afraid of? The answers live in a list. 6 names, 6 men, 6 moments she kept buried for decades. Not because she forgot, but because she chose silence over spectacle. That choice, it turns out, was the most powerful thing she ever did. But now, the silence is breaking. And when you hear what she endured, you want to see that famous smile the same way again. Before she was the face of Hollywood warmth, Goldie Hawn was a little girl growing up in Tacoma Park, Maryland, raised between her father's Jewish heritage and her mother's Protestant practicality. She took ballet at 3. She performed at 5. She was, even then, a girl trying to make the room feel better. That instinct, the instinct to soften, to charm, to diffuse, would serve her brilliantly on screen. Off screen, it would cost her. The industry she entered in the late 1960s was not built for women like her. It was built by men who saw a beautiful blonde and immediately decided what she was. Decorative, interchangeable, easy to dismiss. Her Oscar win for Cactus Flower in 1970 did change that. Neither did Private Benjamin, which earned her a nomination as a producer actress and proved she could command a film entirely on her terms. The men around her smiled, applauded, and kept right on underestimating her, and some of them went much further than that. Bill Murray is the first name on her list, and there is a reason he sits at the top. It was supposed to be a table read. Late 1980s, a studio comedy, the kind of project that looked like effortless fun from the outside, pairing Goldie Hawn with Bill Murray. America's sweetheart and comedy's wildcard felt, on paper, like lightning in a bottle. What happened in that room was something else entirely. Murray arrived an hour late. Loud, disheveled, unapologetic. He dropped a half-empty coffee cup directly onto the script pages, looked around the table, and announced, "Now we can start." The men in the room laughed. Goldie did tea. She watched him carefully. She already knew something was wrong. As the reading began, she delivered her lines with warmth and precision. Murray interrupted her mid-scene. He smirked at the room and said, "Why don't you try acting like you've done drama before?" The laughter that followed was instant. Goldie didn't flinch. She closed her script, rose from her chair, and walked out of the room without a single word. That silence was louder than anything she could have said. The next day, her team notified the producers. Goldie Hawn was out. No press release, no confrontation. She simply erased herself from the project and never looked back. Years later, she summed Murray up to a close friend in one sentence. "He thinks unpredictability is genius. I think it's exhausting." After that day, she stopped tolerating what Hollywood liked to dress up as difficult genius behavior. She called it what it was: cruelty wearing a costume. Warren Beatty's name appears second on her list, and his offense was simpler, and in many ways, more sinister. It all started with a single word from Goldie. No. In the late 1970s, Beatty was at the apex of his Hollywood power, and he decided Goldie would be his next conquest. He invited her to dinner, then to private parties, then to his Beverly Hills home. The implication was understood by everyone in the industry. Goldie was polite, charming, and completely unmoved, and that refusal, that one quiet act of self-possession, was apparently unforgivable. Almost overnight, the landscape shifted. Scripts she had been promised disappeared. Directors who had been enthusiastic went unreachable. One producer pulled her aside and delivered the message plainly. Warren says you read difficult, not serious material. It was quiet, calculated, and it worked. Years later, Goldie described him with 6 words that explained everything he does to handle rejection. He punishes it. She never confronted him publicly. She let time do what time does. But at an award ceremony years later, fate placed them face to face. Beatty approached her with his old smile, leaned in to greet her like nothing had ever happened. Goldie looked him directly in the eyes, gave a sweet, measured smile, and turned her back mid-sentence. No argument, no scene. Just a back, slowly and deliberately turned. She had practiced grace for so long that she could deploy it as a weapon. Dustin Hoffman is the third name, and his entry on this list will surprise people who consider him a progressive icon of American cinema. It was the early 1980s, and Goldie was ready to transform. She had spent a decade proving she could make the world laugh. Now she wanted to make it feel. The producers arranged a reading, she and Hoffman, opposite each other, for a prestigious drama. Everyone expected electricity. What they got was something far more telling. Halfway through the scene, Hoffman stopped. He looked at her with a flat, dismissive expression, then turned to the producers and said, "She's still playing it like a sitcom." The room absorbed it. The men nodded. Goldie didn't move. She finished the scene with calm, precise deliberateness, thanked the room politely, and left before anyone could comment. The next morning, she called her agent and said flatly, "I am out. I want to fight for respect in a room full of men who already decided I am a joke." She never worked with Hoffman again. And when asked about the experience later, she offered a single sentence that functioned as the most elegant form of retaliation imaginable. Some men forget they not directing the women around them. Hoffman thought he had exposed her weakness. He had only exposed his own. Chevy Chase is 4th on the list, and theirs is a story the public thought it knew. The golden duo of foul play, the chemistry, the laughter. The public was watching the wrong movie. Behind the cameras, Chase walked onto the set of that 1978 film as though the studio had been built specifically to honor him. He mocked lines. He rewrote scenes unilaterally. He sulked for hours if Goldie received more attention from the crew. And when she did, he'd mutter under his breath just loud enough to be heard. "She's lucky to be here." Goldie tried warmth. She tried humor. She tried charm. None of it touched him. He's not funny when the cameras stop rolling. She finally told her stylist one evening, sitting exhausted on the set steps. "He's just mean." The studio, thrilled with the film's success, came to her with a sequel offer. Significant money. Easy prestige. She turned it down without hesitation. Not interested, she told her agent, and that was the entire conversation. She had decided that her piece was worth more than any sequel, which is a kind of financial philosophy that very people Hollywood have ever had the courage to practice. Penn is 5th, and what he did was different from the others. He didn't do it in a private room. He didn't operate through proxies or quiet smear campaigns. He did it in public, in a ballroom, under chandeliers, in front of hundreds of people. It was 2014, a Malibu charity gala. Goldie was invited to speak about mental health, a subject she had devoted years of serious, studied attention to long before wellness became a cultural trend. When she took the stage, the room went quiet. From his table, Penn sighed audibly, rolled his eyes, and said, loudly enough for the people around him to hear, another celebrity wellness sermon. Goldie delivered her speech anyway, and the room responded with genuine warmth. Then Penn leaned back, smirked, and said the line she has never forgotten. She should stick to giggling. She didn't flinch. She smiled, raised her glass, and left early in the car. Afterward, she finally spoke. "My whole career, and I am still reduced to giggles." She drew her line that night. From then on, Goldie refused to attend any event where Penn's name was on the guest list. When asked about him years later, her response was 3 words: "Not my energy, not anger, not bitterness, just the quiet, final efficiency of a woman who had stopped explaining herself to people who had never actually listened." Kirk Douglas is the last name on her list, and his story is perhaps the most quietly devastating of all, because he never meant to be cruel. He simply never considered that he could be. It was an industry panel in the late 1990s. Goldie arrived as an Oscar-winning actress and active producer. Douglas greeted her with his famous grin, kissed her hand, and said, "You haven't aged a day, sweetheart." The crowd laughed affectionately. Goldie smiled politely, and inside, something tightened. During the discussion, Kirk interrupted her not once but 3 times, finishing her sentences, correcting her thoughts mid-thought, turning every moment back to himself with the practiced ease of a man who had never once been made to feel like he was taking up too much space. The moderator later admitted the shift was visible. "You could feel her go from glowing to stone cold," he said. After the panel, Goldie told a friend, "He talks to me like I am still the blonde in a bikini scene. I've won an Oscar." She remained cordial with his son, Michael Douglas, whom she spoke of warmly and often, but she never mentioned Kirk again. And later, she said something about him that is perhaps the simplest and most resonant line in this entire story. "Some men don't deserve a second act in your memory." Kirk Douglas never knew he was on her list. He probably died assuming they were friends. That might be the cruelest part of all. Not the men who knew they'd wronged her, but the one who never once thought to ask. Here is the myth worth debunking, because it's the one that has followed Goldie Hawn for most of her career, that she was too lightweight for serious Hollywood, too giggly, too easy, too decorative. The men on this list believed some version of that myth, and several of them weaponized it. What the myth missed entirely was the internal architecture of the woman. Goldie Hawn is the person who co-founded the Mind Up program, bringing social-emotional learning to hundreds of thousands of children globally. She is a serious student of Buddhist philosophy. She built a production company, produced films, and quietly shaped more careers than most people will ever know. The panic attacks she described at the beginning of this story, she faced them, studied them, built an organization around helping others do the same. She didn't just survive the industry as cruelty. She converted it into purpose. She never named these men publicly, never ran to a talk show with a grievance, never weaponized her platform for revenge. Not because she lacked the courage, but because she understood something those men never did, that the most durable power is the power to destroy someone. It's the power to simply stop giving them room in your life. The smile, it turns out, was never the illusion. The men who thought she was small, they were the illusion, and Goldie Hawn, quietly, wisely, let them believe it right up until it stopped mattering. Some truths don't need to be spoken to be understood. They just need time. And time, in the end, is the one thing none of those men could take from her.